Lifeboat Live. We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hello, everybody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass, as always, is my partner, Mark Wages. You know, what's crazy is this is going to sound so familiar, but there's really no way to do an intro to this, to do it any justice other than to repeat what I said the last time. And it went something like this. Human nature being what it is, it's normally a hell of a lot of fun to say, I told you so, right? It's one of those things that normally as human beings, we want more than anything to be able to say, I told you so, right? Or at least think it if we're not going to say it out loud, because it makes us feel like, you know, we got something on the ball and we're, you know, a little ahead of everybody else. It's just one of those things that I think most of us enjoy. But about 10 months ago, we did a show on a substance called phytonitazines, which is from the benzonitazole family of opiates. This was a drug that in 1957 they originally synthesized, and they were looking for a less addicting pain medication. Truth be told, and I'll go over this in a minute because it's confusing, but the medication just goes and turns on a faucet in your body. And that faucet gives you what gets you high. So you got to think about it in terms of attaching to a receptor is literally like grabbing a hold of a faucet and turning it, right? So they don't know how hard it's going to get turned until they start testing on humans. So back in 1957, they tested phytonitazines and immediately put them on the shelf. And the reason is it was 1,000 times better suited to attach itself to the receptors than anything they had ever tested, which meant this stuff was going to be really freaking strong. It had the chance of releasing so much stuff that basically it was going to stop your heart. So they said, well, it was a nice idea while it lasted, but if it's that much stronger than the morphine molecule, because they're saying it's between 10 to 30 times stronger than Fent, which of course is what, 100 times stronger than morphine. So we're getting to the point where it's just ridiculous, which I believe I said 10 months ago too. And in that video, I said, here's the problem. If you think about drug dealers and what they do for a living, they want to make as much money as possible, yeah? So they want to spend the smallest amount of money that they can on what it is they're buying. That's phytonitazines, or nits as they call them. This is to opiates what crystal meth is to amphetamines. Any jackwagon with any kind of skill whatsoever and a small amount of equipment can crank this stuff out in garages. And we've already had someone in the United States, actually in Salt Lake, who got busted making this stuff in their garage. But we talked about it on and off for a couple of weeks right after I did the first video on it, because no one had ever heard of it. To this day, a lot of people haven't heard of nits. So whenever we talked about it, a bunch of people would ask questions, and in some of the comments, the there were people who just thought, maybe we were jumping the gun, that maybe this wouldn't, because what we said basically was a time is coming where they're going to be starting to talk about this on the news. And that's kind of how it works out, right? Whenever a new substance comes to this country, especially if it's an opiate one, it's going to show up in powdered form. They're not going to take the time to press it into pills and do all of that before they send it. And they sure as hell aren't going to press it into pills until they get it in the hands of the really serious users, right? And they want powder. If they buy a pill, they're just going to crush it and put it in a spoon anyway. So when it first comes over, they sell it off and test the market out. And they, now NITS is showing up in pills. And the first news reports that I have been able to find, and personally, and I look for these, but this came from somebody on the boat. And I appreciate that. Anytime you guys come across anything like this, just please, send it to myself, send it to Mark, because we really do want to, sort of keep up with all this. This was Flamin' Jackson actually came across this. So we appreciate it, Jackson. But we're not happy that we're right. This is something that, we're fairly bummed out that that this substance is out there. It's I said at the time, the overdose deaths are going to make 100,360, because when I did that video, the deaths from the previous year were estimated at 100,360, which we said at the time, that's BS, but that's what they're telling people. Now they're telling people 108,000 is what they're telling people now. That is the newest figure, 108,000. And we're still telling you that's BS, right? It's considerably higher than that. But the day is coming where we're going to look back and say, boy, it was a lot better when the Fent was here, wasn't it? And that's scary, people. It really is. But when we talked about, when it was heroin and we said there's a day we're all going to wish that the heroin was back, it seemed ridiculous. But I'm telling you, this stuff is so much stronger than fentanyl. So from a drug dealer's standpoint, it's cheap as heck to make. And if it's 30 times more potent than Fent, that means if you have a bag of it this big, you can make 30 times more dope out of that than you could out of the Fent. Now, if you were in that line of work and your headaches are what? Trying not to get caught and having to get this stuff across an international border so that you can sell it, right? So they're going to go for the absolute smallest package they can. So as they can make it stronger and stronger and stronger, they're going to keep doing that. Thank you, Brandon. Really appreciate that. Do smash that button, people. It helps with the algorithm. Thumbs up would be nice. Okay, so the scariest part of this is that in the past, drug dealers and I'm not talking about the guy on the corner slinging dope, right? Or any of you or me or whoever, dabbled in selling drugs. Even if you did a lot of it, you're not a drug dealer. You're just a street person, right? You're just trying to stay high and make a little bit of cash. I'm talking about the narco terrorist kind of drug dealers that are trying to get tons of this stuff across borders and into the country. They never wanted to kill the clients, right? That was a serious issue. Well, you don't want to kill your clients. And the reason they didn't want to kill the clients is because the truth of the matter was, if you took the whole country, such a small amount, right, of the country was doing heroin, well, then you sure as hell didn't want to kill any of them off. See, but now they've spread this out into everything. This, when 10 months ago, they had already caught this stuff in synthetic cannabinoids, right? So they were dousing stuff like K2 with nits, and it's showing up in so many different substances. That's why when I did that video last night, I'm scared to hell that when we get a good test done on this stuff, that it's not going to have nits in it, and nits would be a better choice than Fent, right? Because they're going to test for Fent. This phytonitazines is a completely different family, right? And it is one of those things that you have to be looking for. You're not going to find it if you're looking for just an opiate test may not do it. You have to specifically know what you're looking for. And speaking of, it won't do it. Narcan, which is the antidote, right? Narcan is what saves people who have overdosed. It's the antidote to all opiate overdoses. And it's not going to do squat to this. And that's already been proven. Now, as again, I said earlier that we were reached out to Zen Wen. Zenwen, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I really do. I see Zenwen everywhere I go to. As I said, we didn't find this, right? Jackson sent this to us, which we really appreciate the heck out of Jackson. But it's one of those things that's not very long. And I was kind of hoping that we could show it to all of you. Probably because it's the first time I've ever heard anyone in the news say this out loud. So
exactly, man. That's what I
scary.
thought too when I seen it. When he sent it to you and me both, and I was sitting there looking at that thing. They're really talking about this?
Yeah. And the sad
mind.
thing is, it's, you know, we kind of predicted that by the time they start talking about this, the number of overdose deaths in this country is going to spike. I really hope we're wrong about that. But yeah, let's take a look at it if we can.
I'm gonna go ahead and it's gonna take up the whole screen. So whenever you want me to stop it, I'll stop it. You just tell me.
Okay.
So
yep.
All right, you guys ready? We'll go ahead and watch this real quick, and let me transition over, and away we go. Oh, that's muted, isn't it? Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. I had it muted when I was setting it up.
Oh, is that so? So I look like an idiot. I've just been hanging out here. I love it when that happens.
No. Just that 2-second part there. I started.
Oh, okay.
The video was.
Oh, I got you.
The video was muted. So yeah, here we go.
To the CDC, in 2021, U.S. drug overdose deaths reach a record high, over 108,000 people. Even more concerning, of those deaths, 75% were linked to a synthetic opioid.
Here in Virginia, there was a new synthetic opioid found near Lynchburg in October.
U.S. drug overdose deaths reached a record high.
Hold on a minute, Tommy. I got an echo. I'm sorry. That's my bad.
Don't worry.
I'm on mute. I got.
Okay. Gotcha.
Hold on a minute, Tommy. I got it.
Don't worry.
It's a powder that can resemble nearly any pill.
We can't tell the difference at DEA whether if it's a legitimate drug or it's something such as Nitazine or fentanyl. It's extremely potent. It's as potent, if not more, than fentanyl.
It's super scary for our kids, our brothers, our sisters, everybody. This has got to stop. When's it going to stop?
Lisa Reed lost her daughter Caitlin to fentanyl last year. She says she's praying for the day when her daughter's killer, the person who sold her the pill, is held responsible.
My bumper sticker says, getting a fentanyl dealer off the street is not going to save my child.
Okay. The sad thing about this, people, is that 10 months ago, we honestly started yelling about this, and we started writing letters to people in government and saying things like, do you even know what this stuff is? Because I promise you it's already on the streets. And the logical question becomes this. If we're talking about this 10 months ago, I assure you that's not because my bobble-headed partner and I are wildly slick, right? Or we've got contacts all over the world who are phoning in. This is just really obvious stuff, right? That a guy in a captain's hat and his partner can figure out and start warning people. It makes you wonder why people at the top can't, right? And I think basically it's because of where this trash comes from. And right now, there is so much death coming from this. At the height of World War II, less than 300 American soldiers were dying a day. That was at the height of World War II. We're losing more than that every single day in this country alone. Worldwide, who knows, right? Who knows how many people we're losing worldwide, but just in this country, over 300 a day. And when I did the first video on NITS, which I think Mark is going to put a link to in the Dropbox, when I did that first video, I think the number of people we were losing was a little below that. It wasn't as everything we did in that video, it's gotten nastier, it's gotten worse, right? It just continues to get worse and worse and worse, and we continue to say the exact same things, right? And no one's doing anything on this. My hat's off to everybody that reached out. Steve did amazing stuff. Seventh Son, the number of letters that man wrote, it's absolutely phenomenal just how far his reach went. He's a hero in my book. Honestly, a hero. Now, so the antidote doesn't work, right? Which is a frightening thing. That means that if you call the ambulance and the first responders get out there, they can pump people full of Narcan, and it's just not going to get the job done. The reason being, when nitazines or nitazines or whatever you want to call it, because everybody pronounces that differently, the nits, when nits get into the body and they attach themselves to the receptor, they attach themselves to the receptor so strongly that that's called an agonist. Okay. Anything that you put into your body that attaches itself to an opioid receptor, the mu receptor, is called an agonist. Okay. An antagonist does the exact opposite. It knocks off anything that's on the stem, and it also prevents anything from getting back on it. Okay. It's the absolute reason that this is the antidote. You put Narcan into somebody's body, and it goes, and instantly, I mean, as fast as it takes to go through the bloodstream one time around, this stuff knocks all of the stuff off the receptors. Plain and simple. That's it. That's how it works. Except it doesn't work on this. So it's just going to continue to sit there. And again, think of it as a faucet, right? Because that's basically what's happening. The description that the people in science always say is that it's like a puzzle piece, right? The molecule that is playing the agonist has to fit perfectly into the receptor in the body. That, however, gets really confusing to me, right? Trying to figure out exactly how that works, what that does. The best way I've ever heard this described, and it wasn't me originally, but the idea of a faucet. What's happening is the handle on top of a faucet, that's what the agonist is doing. So when you take heroin, you take fent, you take any of that, it goes in there, it attaches itself to the receptors and then turns. And now what starts flowing out of there is opiates, human opiates, the stuff we make ourselves. Had to be in there so we could have pain, so we could regulate pain. When you injure yourself, if you hit yourself in the thumb with a hammer and you yell, bad words, you grab your thumb and it starts hurting badly. You know something? It's not hurting as bad as it should, because your body is instantly sending off stuff to regulate that pain. Happens all the time, day in, day out. It also regulates mood and does everything else, right? That's how this works. When you put an agonist in, you turn that puppy on full blast, and it stays that way until the agonist runs out of juice and it unattaches itself, goes through the bloodstream, right? That's a different half-life on every single substance. So they measure these things in the amount of time it takes for half of the dose to get off of the receptor, right? That's how they figure this out. So the stronger the agonist, more often than not, the half-life tends to be stronger too. They don't know really with nits and with a lot of these newer substances because they haven't been studied. Again, in 1957, when they played with this, it scared the crap out of them. For lack of a better way to put it, they went, whoa, stick this crap on a shelf, right? This is not what we need. It's just, and it's a street drug, people. Right now it is on the street. So now that I've explained to you how the antidote works, Suboxone, right, is a drug that we talk about on here all the time. And it brings up arguments every single freaking time I say the word Suboxone. Somebody's going to argue with me. Today, I'm not even going to look at the comments, so it's going to be a lot easier. But buprenorphine is a partial agonist. What that means is this. It is going to attach itself to a receptor in the body, right, which is an mu receptor, but it's one that only works to this substance, right? It attaches itself uniquely to this. And when it does, a partial agonist turns the faucet on for a long time, but it drips. So instead of having a big flow of this stuff coming into the body, and making you really, really wasted, right, where you can't talk and you lose, it just drips enough into the body so that it keeps the person not thinking about it. And as importantly, when you put a partial agonist onto a receptor, nothing else can bind to that receptor until that thing is gone. So if you took a partial agonist and then 10 minutes later did phytonitazines are not going to be able to attach to that receptor. plain and simple, right? This is something that is a great concept for the treatment of people who have opiate use disorder, right? Opiate use disorder is a phenomenon now that they're talking about, where if you do this long enough, you actually screw up the receptors, and you screw up the neurotransmitter between the receptors in the brain, right? And those neurotransmitters literally are homemade opiates, right? So your body screams for those even when there is no pain. Normally we hurt ourselves and you go, oh, and a little thing in your brain says, he's hurting. We need to send down this stuff as fast as we can. And he's hurting so bad that we need, a bigger dose. We need something from the outside to really turn the switch. That signal goes on all of the time once somebody has opiate use disorder. So inside the brain, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, is a voice, right, that nobody else hears. And the voice isn't audible. It's not even words, but it's yelling, feed me. And it makes it damn near impossible to concentrate on anything else. And no matter how much the person tries to turn that off, it straight doesn't happen. So the medical assisted treatment is a drip system for 24 hours. For 24 hours, that partial agonist is going to let it go drip, drip, drip. Nobody will argue this. Look up in science. Nobody will argue this. There is not one person with opiate use disorder that has ever gotten high on Suboxone. Now, if you've never done any drug, Suboxone is going to knock you into next week. It will be the kind of thing that will absolutely destroy you. And if that's hard for people to figure out, I'm going to use Niall because I know Niall's got thick skin and won't mind me using him as an example. In his heyday, do you think Niall would have been affected by one drink the same way that someone who's never had a drink would be? Okay, it's kind of the same principle, right? But the difference is that the opiate use disorder damages the brain to the point where the only way to relieve the person, right, is to basically drip the faucet. Very much the way Ritalin, right, or Adderall has an opposite effect on someone that has attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder, right? You give them speed because that's all it is. Adderall, Ritalin, all of those, Dexedrine, what's the top one? Digoxin, right? The strongest. All of those things, right? Every one of them. If you give one of those to someone who has ADHD, it actually calms them down. If you give one of those to somebody that doesn't have ADHD, they are going to bounce off the walls like a kernel of popcorn does in an air popper, right? And it's going to happen for a really long time. If you're taking the stuff at the top of the food chain, or you're taking worse, methamphetamine, right? Meth literally can knock out people who have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's a very odd thing that happens in the brain, but that's the phenomenon that happens with people who have been abusing opiates for far too long. What is going to happen to somebody that abuses Nitazines for 5 or 6 years? What is that going to do inside the dome? The answer to that is we don't have a friggin' clue. We're just now figuring out what 25 or 35 years of abusing half of the drugs on the street will do. You do realize that this stuff really came on and really started to be getting looked at in the 60s of the last century, right? It's not a long time. It really isn't. And a lot of those drugs weren't around then. If you said speed in the 60s, they were talking about cross tops and they were talking about really weak stuff, right? Making the stuff in the, people doing homemade recipes and doing P2P, the really strong speed that the bikers used to sling, right? Prope dope. That stuff didn't really start coming on the scenes until the early 70s. So no one's ever studied any of this stuff until just recently. So we don't know the long-term effect of almost all of these drugs, but the ones that are coming over here now. Niall said something earlier that, they'll figure out how to regulate this as they kill off a bunch of people. And normally, I would agree with you 100%, right? Because that's just good business. As you start to see this stuff kill off, you say, it's a little bit too strong. We're going to back this off. They say fentanyl's killing half of the people in America who are using it, right? That's all bad. So let's send over something 30 times stronger. That make a lick of sense? They know what's going to happen when this stuff hits the street. And I assure you people, exactly what they want to happen is what's going to happen. The government of that country knows if somebody breaks wind, right? They regulate that society. They know who's making the nits. They know where they're being made. They know how they're getting sold. They're helping them get it to the port and get it onto boats. Believe that. Believe that. So the only way to fight this, people, the only way to fight this is for the news crews to start talking about it, and for parents to talk to kids, and for all of us to talk to anybody we know who gets high. In the last show, I said, if there are people who are going to hear the sound of my voice that we don't know, right? We know the crew on the boat. We know almost all of you, right? We may not talk to you, but we know when your avatar pops up, we go, oh yeah, he's been in here before. She's been in here before, whatever. But people watch it that don't comment, people we don't know. This shows up on somebody's feed. I said, somebody that sees this is probably going to be dead by the end of the month. The sad thing is, at 300 people a day, that really is becoming, I mean, solid, right? Solid. Excellent chance that people listening to this live feed right now ain't going to be around in a month to listen to another one. So, can we win this war? Hell no. We can't. We screwed the pooch a long time ago, and there is no way to just jam on the brakes now. And they know it, right? People in this country are talking about giving up completely. You know, we can't fight it. Let's make all of it legal. That way we can at least regulate it, or, you know, try to make sure that the product that's going out doesn't kill people. There are places in the U.S. right now that will allow you to go and shoot up in front of a doctor in a hospital or any other like little places that they've set up so that you have a medical professional there while you bang dope. If you had told me that 5 years ago, there's no way in hell I would have believed that 5 years ago. But how much it's changed since we did our first video on nits is terrifying. And that's 10 months. It's really a trick to go back and watch the stuff we were talking about. Listen to the numbers. Mark could probably tell you the first time we did one of these, we used to call these the rants, right? Because I'm not very good at slowing down once I start talking about this. So we used to call these the rants. And the very first rant that I did, 87,000 people, right? That was the number. 87,000 people a year were dying. 87,000. We're up to 108. And once again, I'll say what I said when it was at 87, right? I'll say what I said when it was at 100,360. They're lying. They're lying. The numbers are so much higher, so much stronger. You know, it's often said, and they brag about it. They think in terms, our enemy thinks in terms of 1,000 years. We think in terms of 4. They think in terms of dynasties. We think in terms of new presidents. Each one gets in, tries something different. So if this takes them 40 years to destroy the fabric of this country and all of the other ones that side with us, because this stuff ain't just coming to America, coming to a city near you, I assure you. I assure you. Do a little research on this, people. Somebody deep dive this with me. Go and look up some of this stuff and do a little research, and you will find out that all over the planet, people are dropping dead. And it's all coming from one place. If you still don't think that this is intentional, then I'm really questioning how much you put in thought into any of this. With all due respect, you know, with all due respect, if you don't see this for what it is, you know, it's like you said, why would you continue to make the product stronger if the product's already killing everybody? Right? Why would you continue to make it stronger? Maybe back off a little. Cut it before it leaves your country. There's an idea. Cut the dope before you send it out. Don't send out 100% pure. Cut it a little, right? Duff in 20%. Send out 80. Now when these people start cutting it, yeah, you'll have a bunch of people wasted, but you won't have a lot dead. No, they want them dead. There's no other explanation. There really is no other explanation. And unfortunately, this stuff makes you so damn hold on one second. I feel like Suboxone is nothing but a gateway drug, like first cigarette, alcohol, 3 Suboxone. This leads to many more addictions to keep you in the pharmacy industry.
Can I comment? Let me comment on that. Okay. Can I hit that one, please?
Sure.
First off, it's a gateway drug when that's the first drug you use. Okay? It's not a gateway drug when you take it to get off of another. So, and I was talking to one of my friends, locally here where I live, and he's like, because he kind of was thinking the same thing. Did you just trade one drug for another? Is it leading you to other stuff? And he said, what do you get nothing from it. Why don't you just stay doing what you're doing? You know what I said to him? It gave me my family back. That's what it gave me. So that's what I say. And people can get sober how they get sober. But the thing of it is, this is not just my story. Go talk to a bunch of people that are on Suboxone that are now the person they were before, if not better, for it, because they've been through something hard and now they're on the other side of it and they're able to think clearly and they're helping others. It's making the world, I'm not saying that the drug is making the world a better place, but because of how I did my thing, I know I'm making the world a better place around me. And I definitely would not have been there without that. I promise you that. So that's my take on it. Sorry.
Okay. What I was going to say is this. This is a rare occurrence where very often a large percentage of every prescription that's written ends up on the street as part of the drug trade. The people who take Suboxone actually need Suboxone. So what happens is you get people that aren't likely to be reselling what they need in order to get basically through life. There is a really excellent video that we did. What is the name of the what was the name of the doctor? Dr. Jetmore? Okay. Yeah, we did a video with a doctor about this subject. And he's not just a doctor, and he's not just a Suboxone doctor. This is a cat that put together the protocols for an entire state, right? So this is somebody that really kind of has a handle on it. And the fascinating thing about Dr. Jetmore is he started out exactly with your opinion. For real. This was a doctor who thought that Suboxone may just be the most evil thing that ever came down the pike. And then he started working with it. And he started seeing what this does to people's lives. Truth be told, there's not a substance on the planet that has any kind of narcotic effect that is not going to be abused. It's not going to end up on the street being sold. More than likely, the term gateway drug more often than not refers to the first drug that leads to the next one, right? And I don't know that would be a great description for Suboxone. Are people going to abuse it? Absolutely. Absolutely. When I was in prison, I would say 30% of the prison population was getting high on it. But you know what was interesting? There weren't any addicts getting high on it. The people who were addicted to dope on the street were never going to buy a strip of that in there because it didn't do anything, right? You could tell, but yeah, people bought it, and they would cut it into pieces you would not believe. Take a strip and cut it 64 pieces and sell those for $5 a piece. And I would look down, and my vision's not great. I'm an old man. I remember looking down and going, it's that big white piece of paper? He's like, no, it's the little orange triangle on it. I'm like, where the hell is there an orange triangle? Honestly, Mark, I could not even see what was on there.
When you told me that the first time, my chin about hit the floor. Honestly.
Yeah, 64.
It even shocked me. And I had been on Suboxone for a long time. I just never heard. I've heard of people taking a strip and cutting it into 3 pieces or whatever. And
yeah, right. 4 maybe.
And,
4 maybe.
Yeah, and something else, so I can clarify what I was saying, just to make sure that everybody understands what I actually think. I think that everybody gets clean or sober the way that they get clean and get sober. That's how I view things. I don't care how you get there. Just as long as you get there. If you're making your life better, I support that. And and I definitely see what Vivian was saying, though. I mean, I get it. I honestly see. I really truly honestly do, because I actually fought that in my own mind before I did it, before I went to that, because I was put into a place where I didn't have very many options. It was either Suboxone or methadone for me. There was no other option for me. Now or go back to the street, and then my family and everything else was gone. So I mean, I was put into that spot, and thank God that I got in early on a Suboxone program, and it really truly did, because I don't know about for you, Tommy, but I was in severe withdrawal when I went into rehab. And within a half hour, man, I didn't feel high. I just felt like I felt before I started taking opiates. That's really,
do you know what's,
that's
do
really
you know
how
what's
I
really,
felt. I mean,
you know what's really odd, Mark? I was sober for 5 years. I had not done any dope in 5 years. And I was out of prison and I was getting ready to leave the halfway house. And they assigned me the fifth psychiatric doctor that I had seen in a year. And I was getting pretty salty with that whole process. So I said, look, I'm going home in a month and a half. So I would rather not even talk to you. Right. And the person kind of kept me on the phone and said, is there anything you're scared about? I said, yeah, every minute of every day, I want to do heroin. Right. For the last 5 years, every minute of every day, I want to do heroin. It's just a matter of time. I'm going back to prison. Like, that's just my life. That's the reality of it. You know, we were in a lockdown unit, even at the halfway house. It was so regulated. But when I got home, when I got someplace where I could go get the stuff, no, I was going to be back in prison. I've watched this show happen for 35, 40 years. And she brought up Suboxone. And, you know, I had a very similar thought to a lot of people, you know, and I said, you know, I don't know that I just want to become addicted to another substance. But, you know, Vivian, I understand exactly where you're coming from. The reason that I tend to not want to do these debates is for this reason. If you're listening to this show for the first time today, Vivian, right, and you're doing 7 grams of heroin a day, and you've been thinking that you may try medical assisted treatment because for the last 19 times you've tried to get sober, you know, it just didn't work. And you can't seem to stay away from the stuff for more than 4 or 5 days. Or if you even kick it, within a month, you're back. And you can't explain it. But that's your life. I would hate for someone to come on and read comments that, you know, that would lead them to believe that this stuff is something that isn't. I respect your opinion. I really do.
She even said, I'm not sure if you've seen her comment after that, Tommy. Did you see it? She said it's a great topic, and she actually agrees with what we were saying. Everybody gets sober their different way. So I mean,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. And you know something? The perfect example of that is this. I am not a fan of methadone. In fact, I'm terrified of it. And I could do 2 shows on it. The reason I could do 3 shows on it. The reason we never beat on methadone in a show, and I promise you, people, I could do a show that would impress you. But well, you know I could.
I'll be right
The reason that yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
The reason that I don't ever do a show beating on it is because there are guys out and girls out there right now that are on 80 milligrams a day and manage to get a job and live a life, and they're not doing heroin. And I wouldn't want to. Everybody gets sober different, and I don't want to bag on that person for how they're getting sober. But yeah, I got sober without it. I just couldn't stay sober without it. I was white knuckling it the entire time.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We talk
white knuckling.
Yeah, we talk a lot about white knuckle, and here's the thing. The other thing that is, I guess I'm not sitting here trying to advocate for Suboxone. I don't want you guys thinking that. I really don't, because I try not to push my opinion of that out onto everybody. People ask me, and I tell them what my opinion is. That's how it works for me. But I'm not going to push it on anybody. But for me, like Tommy said, it wasn't a long period of time for me, like it was 5 years for him. But my story went, you know, and I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I ended up in a psych ward before I got to rehab. The second day in there, I can vividly remember starting to feel a little bit better physically. Okay? I remember that. And I questioned myself years later. Should I have just, you know, white knuckled it for another week? Would it have worked? These kinds of things started going through my head, you know, and it's a legitimate thought. But then here's where I ended up back full circle is I recognized that even though that drug was helping me, I seen what it did for my wife. It's amazing what it did for her, and she wasn't taking it. It gave her a sense of security that I wasn't going to be able to do anything else.
Right.
And that's another side thing there, but it that is part of what happened with my story.
If you think you're going to screw up, if somebody comes in and drops your drug of choice on the table and it's the best version of it ever and it's free and it's there and you don't have to work the following day and you just really want to screw up, you'd have to wait 72 hours before you could. And that's something that really is kind of a benefit too. But I saw Zen Wen left a comment, said, I did a fourth of a strip once and it knocked me out. Maybe it's because I have ADHD. No, it knocked you out because even though this is not really technically an opiate, it is an agonist that does exactly what an opiate does. And I mean exactly. It's just not, it never came from a poppy. It's synthetic and it's not in the same family as anything else. It's very unique because of the specific receptors that it binds to. But no, if you're not, and I'm going to use the term, I'm sorry, but if you're not a junkie, right? If you're not someone doing really serious amounts of dope, then Suboxone's going to get you ridiculously high. Yep. And you may vomit, all of the bad symptoms that go with any kind of opiate. It's really, really going to knock you out. And that in Dirty Skies, that's actually a very common opinion. And again, I'm not saying it's bad or good. I think, and we say this so much, I think I might say it too much, but everything is just so individualized when it comes to your recovery. It has to be. You have to be getting everything involved. You have to get your family, your doctor, all that involved. And whatever your path is your path. And you got to figure it out for yourself. And I know it sucks, okay? Everybody wants everybody to say, here, there's the answer to everything. It doesn't work that way, guys. It just doesn't. And I know that we don't church it up here because we don't. This is just how it is. This is what we say. But that is a common thing, and that is the other, when you're talking about the difference between those two, and I don't want to make it between a Suboxone methadone thing, but the difference is, and you can say Suboxone against any other thing really, you can still get high on methadone. You can take methadone right now and go out and get you an 8-ball and do whatever you needed to do. Absolutely. And absolutely. That's the difference, and it hits your receptor like popcorn. I saw a good question. A really good question. I'm not exactly sure how to say your name, but which one? The question was, would it OD you? Here's the thing with that. It can, right? It is so infrequent that it happens. First of all, what makes this really a unique substance is this. You'll know what Narcan is, right? Narcan blocks, like I said earlier, Narcan blocks drugs from working, and it knocks stuff off the receptors. Well, the only drug on the planet where they mix both of those together is Suboxone. Yep. So a strip of Suboxone is 8 milligrams of buprenorphine, and it's 2 milligrams of naloxone, which is Narcan. So the more of this drug you do, the more you block, because when Narcan gets up to the 6 to 8 milligram dose, it literally is going to knock all of the buprenorphine off of the receptors. So it's really a difficult drug to abuse because it has Narcan in it. Now, its cousin, Subutex, and this often gets confused. People will say so-and-so, ate 4 strips of, or they ate 5 strips or 6 strips, and you go, what? No way. It wouldn't do anything, and it probably would have made him sick. Well, Subutex does not have naloxone in it. It's buprenorphine, but it's used as a painkiller. It's not used as a way to get you off of and if they tell you it is, find a new doctor. They're not supposed to, but they do. The clinic I went to, and this is a common thing that I ran into out there, the clinic I went to, is when you go get your medication and stuff, you have an intake. And so you do your intake, and what people did, they started lying to the doctor saying they were getting sick or like giving bad headaches from the naloxone and all this other stuff that was in it, and he would switch them over to Subutex. And I knew exactly what they were doing when they did that. And it's Free Life. Yeah. I'm sorry. Right. Free Life. Send me an email, right? Send me an email. If you want to get off, I can tell you what the protocol is, the exact, like from the doctors, from the manufacturers, I can tell you what the protocol is. And I have helped, I don't know how many people that when you're down to 2 milligrams, you're so close, brother. Yep. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be a difficult thing. Absolutely. Now, this is the same advice I would give to anybody else. I got down really, really low, right? I intended to basically get off the stuff. And I got down really, really low, and things started feeling like they used to. And the prospect of spending the rest of my life in prison, I got to take a medication every day. I kind of view it like a bad heart. I view it like, like I would need insulin. Okay, I need buprenorphine, and I mean, I'm not wasted. I'm allowed to operate a motor vehicle, right? There's not a job in the country that could fire me for being on it, right? It's a very protected substance for a reason. But yeah, please email me. And my email's in the Dropbox. It's just sober, SOBER, at myyahoo.com. Not Yahoo, myyahoo.com. SOBER at myyahoo.com.
And kind of bring this back to the Nitazines. I think that this is what we're talking about, guys. It is most certainly one of those things that we got to pay attention to. And I think Tommy did an awesome job at the beginning of this explaining what's going on. And it needs to be, and he's the one that brought it to my attention. How long ago was it, Tommy, when we did that video? A year ago almost?
Yeah.
Close to it. And that's
close to
one of those things, it just is what it is. And it is a big, it's going to be even bigger if something doesn't happen.
Lawrence and Aragon, this is a great question. Can the government force you to use methadone? No. And the government can't force you to use anything, right? This has gone all the way to the Supreme Court numerous times. And the cases that actually were landmarks, I don't want to talk about them because they were really bad people that were forced to take a drug to keep them from being a really bad person. Hopefully that you can figure that out. But they managed to sue, and the government said that you cannot force a human being to take a medication. It is not something that you can do. There were people for a long time who tried to do this. There were guys that would say, let me out of prison 6 months early, and I'll sign a contract to get on just a blocker, because there is a blocker that you can do, lasts 30 days, doesn't have buprenorphine in it. It's straight, just a huge, dose of naloxone in a capsule that melts, and it takes 30 days for that to melt. But to give you an idea of how that's a little different, I cut one out of my body with a razor blade. Yeah.
What?
I mean, when you get gone, you get gone. Yeah. I went in and had one of those put under the skin. Mm-hmm. And at the time it was a brand new procedure, and it was actually a year, right? And they had a 6-year version, but I had the year version injected into me. And wow. I removed it with a razor blade because although it would block, what's that?
Was it in your arm?
It was in my arm. But unlike, there was nothing dripping anything into the brain to cover receptors. It just made sure you couldn't do dope. And the desire was still there, and I cut it out.
Right.
That tells you where you're at. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
No,
it is what it is. Well, look, on heroin, I robbed banks.
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly
on buprenorphine, I started a sobriety channel. I'm gonna stick with this stuff.
Yeah. No,
this is probably going to be mine.
And again, guys, this is a subject that we probably talked about more than any other, and it's because this is what has given me and Tommy both our lives back. And we don't come out here every show and start pushing it. We don't.
I really try not to talk about it because it always causes.
It does this.
It always does this.
Every time.
It always does this.
Yeah. But I think it's good in a way sometimes.
Chuck Norris said, "I highly doubt that the government can force you to take methadone unless maybe you're in another country." Even I'm sorry, in another country, but methadone did save me. So as we said, there's about a bazillion ways to get sober. The one that always scares me is staying sober, right? Over the course of 3.5 decades, I managed to quit, 40 times. I didn't make it more than 30 days. And the statistics are pretty frightening. 85% don't make it past day 8, right? So, that's opiate use disorder is a unique thing. And I don't know if they can come up with something better. I think that would be great. Everything has unintended consequences, but if this is considered trading one drug for another, I made a hell of a trade. I'm pretty happy with this trade. Yes, and I have an email on the way, and apparently she's going to really let me have it. So
Me too.
and you're getting one too.
Yeah. No, I look forward to reading it. I like to hear what people got to say on it. I mean, honestly.
Sure.
I mean, maybe there's something there I don't know. I'm all.
Well, I'd love to hear anytime there's a healthy discussion. I think it's a pretty good thing. Again, it just scares me because when we have healthy discussions, and then this thing gets pumped out, the people who type into the search bar Suboxone are doing it because they're thinking of quitting heroin or fentanyl. And if they decided not to try it because of something they heard here and overdosed on fentanyl the next day, I would feel pretty crappy for the rest of my time on this planet.
And that's why we don't do it.
That's why I try to avoid talking about any medical assisted treatment. The one exception to that would be the one for alcohol, because there doesn't seem to be anybody that is coming down on the side of there is nobody coming down on the other side of that who thinks that's a bad thing. Naltrexone, pretty much across the board, everyone who has weighed in on naltrexone thinks it may be the greatest invention ever for the cessation of any kind of addiction. So,
and if I got a little too fired up there, guys, I apologize.
Oh, come on! I've thrown stuff. We can't call that. We can't call that too fired up.
I don't like, I don't like doing that. I don't. I think everybody here knows me. It's been here for a while. Knows that I don't typically do that. That's just one subject that's hard for me to not talk about.
Right.
Well,
I mean, if you, and I've had this discussion with other people in the past too. If I handed you something and you truthfully believed, like you could pass a polygraph test to the fact that what I handed you saved your life, and a couple of weeks later somebody told you it was the worst crap in the entire world and was, basically having that conversation around a bunch of people, you would say, hey, that saved my life. Well, that's why people tend to get passionate about it, Yeah.
Back at you, Alan. I love all you guys. And Vivian included. If you think I'm mad at Vivian, I'm not at all. Matter of fact, I look forward to reading the email. I honestly do, because listen, guys, I think Tommy would say the same thing. We don't know everything. We're learning every day. That's why we research it up, and that's why we got a disclaimer at the beginning that says, "Hey, go talk to your doctor." I mean, yeah, exactly, and I think that's exactly what we do here too, Vivian.
Vivian, I'm the world's worst typer, so you know what? Just shoot me a phone number and I'll call you. So much quicker. I mean, look at the size of these things. Are you kidding me? For real. I go to mash these things down and I hit 3 freaking keys. Like I've never been able to type. And with a phone, forget about it. If anybody on the boat that's ever got a text from me will tell you that, for sure. I don't use Apple anymore. Yeah, Mark knows. I don't use Apple anymore, so it doesn't really correct anything I do. There's no nothing. So just Mark will occasionally say, "What the heck were you talking about?"
I can't tell you how many streams we had to start back up or whatever. And me too, though. I'm telling you guys, it happens. Oh, here we go. Stay on long enough.
Do I ever eat Reapers? Yes, I occasionally eat Reapers. Here's the thing: pods for me were not like my brother. I do pretty well with the challenges. Like I did a tube of terror in 43 seconds, which I think is still the world record.
Yep.
And I did packy chip challenges. I've basically done just about every challenge, but pods burn me in a different way. Especially the Reaper, man. The back of the throat burn off the Carolina Reaper. Even if the Scoville. You got 13 million Scoville crystals in a tube of terror. And you can compare that with 2 million Scoville. It just burns differently. And it is, I just really cannot get through it. It really, really tears me up. So not as often as my brother, to be sure.
He's a freak of nature, though. I'm sorry.
The crazy thing is, honestly, the crazy thing is this. He really did earn a lot of that. I mean, he always was a little better at being able to eat hot things than other people, but he does not let a day go by. He literally does not let a day go by that he does not chow a bunch of something hot. So his tolerance is just
ungodly.
I mean, ludicrous. Yeah. He's never taken any time off.
And I have to say, for real. And I have to say this too. without that chili, without that pepper channel of Mr. Legend himself, Johnny Scoville, I would not be here.
That's
That's
crazy.
how me and you met.
Yep, no question.
Seriously, I would have never known that Tommy was going to start this channel, and I never would have reached out to him, and it just never would have happened. And it's awesome.
Yeah, what is that? B. Dawn Newton? I mean, I have no idea how to say her name. I'm going to go with the guy talking about peppers, or the gal talking about peppers. It put me on the ground the first day I tried it. Yeah, I mean, there are people call 911. You know, there's been so many, honestly.
Yeah.
I remember before Johnny started eating them, there really was this misconception that they had grown a pepper that no one could eat. Like it was never going to be able to be eaten. That, you know, when it first came out, everyone was saying, it can't be done. And I think that's why he blew up the way he did, because he could sit there and chow 30 of them. And, you know, I think I saw him do 36 once.
Yeah.
Which is pretty unbelievable.
That, and he got in, like, he basically, him and just a couple others started that whole genre on YouTube. I mean, yeah.
Well done. Be Don. There we go. Be Don.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
See that, people?
It dawned
now I
upon
won't
you.
butcher your name. Yeah, now I won't butcher your name every time I try to talk to you.
It dawned upon you, man.
That's right.
It's awesome.
Be Don. Be Don. Be Don. Okay, be Don.
Alan,
try a prematali. My brother will tell you, right? This is to chase the heat what Suboxone is to the lifeboat.
Yep.
Right? If you start talking about the difference between, you know, the Carolina Reaper and the prematali,
oh man.
People will just start yelling at one another. I mean, you would really think that they grew the pepper themselves, right?
Yeah.
That it wasn't Ed Curry, it's them, because they will just start screaming about it. And but my brother swears on a stack of Bibles that the hottest pepper he's ever eaten was a prematali. So
I don't even think Ed Curry gets into that argument. I think he just kind of stays out of that. I don't know. I'm not over there, but
you know, honestly, I don't. Yeah, my brother spent time with them. I've never, and I think I've spent time with most of the people in the pepper community, but I've never spent time with Ed.
He seemed to be a pretty good guy, though. Just from the shows I've watched, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, guys, and if I went too far tonight, guys, I'm sorry. I get fired up, and
you're good.
I just haven't had a really good day either, and it's just been one of those things. So, yeah. I kind of go ahead.
Seventh Son. I will actually use this joke, and this doesn't happen very often with Seventh Son. But he said, "I made a belt out of watches. 'Twas a waste of time." I will actually use that. That's one that I will actually tell the joke of. You don't have to apologize. You were not a jerk in any way, you know, and neither was Vivian. You could be passionate without being a jerk.
Yeah.
People start calling each other names, and people start, you know.
That's when it gets bad. Yeah, I agree.
Well, and everybody's got an opinion, and everybody can be entitled to whatever opinion they want. When it gets bad is when the opinions get treated as facts, right? Because you're not entitled to your own facts. And this was a good argument. I mean, it was a good debate. It wasn't an argument at all. It was a good debate. You know, it's there's nothing wrong with healthy debate. It's how everybody learns.
And I do want to, you know, say this too about guys. Listen, don't. I know it's kind of about halfway through, took a little bit of a side turn, but the Nitazine thing is a huge one, and we'll probably revisit this. I would imagine we will. I'm gonna get a ton of emails about it, and there will probably be some more videos that get sent my way, which is a good thing. If you see videos, please go ahead and send them. And Ladybug sums it up. She says, "You are not a jerk in any way, shape, or form, Mark." And that's impressive, because when the camera's not on, you would not believe him. No, I'm just kidding. Mark's exactly how he is at all times. That's honest. Alrighty, people, we will be back tomorrow night. We're going to be doing a 2-hour debate tomorrow on Suboxone. We're not. No, I'm just kidding. We will, but we will be back tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat channel. And we'll be back to that business. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass would be the other captain, Mark Wages. And this here, that's a cat in the basket. Good night, everybody. We love you.